Hello and welcome to another Authors After Dark. It must be Monday. Um, Today we have our first international guest on Authors After Dark, which I'm super excited to talk to, S.J. Pratt. She's an indie author. So far, she might go traditional. Oh, there she is. I'm going to try to invite you and see if I do this correctly. I think I did it right. But she is our first international guest. She hails from New Zealand. She is a sci-fi author. Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm
Can you hear me?
good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm just going to forewarn you. I am secluded in the house, but the kids are home and the dog might bark. But
That's
otherwise,
fair.
the interview will go on. Um,
Okay. Same
um,
here. My cat likes to run over my computer and all that kind of stuff. So,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
The foibles of having a live show, you just have to have a disclaimer. Life might happen while we have
exactly.
the live show, but that's
Yeah.
okay. That's what makes it special. Um, it is so great to see you virtually. I feel like we've been having a text relationship where we just keep being like, good job, you, way to go on your
Yeah.
writing, which is super fun. Um, but it's also really nice to like put a face to the name and get to know you a little bit more and this kind of global community now that I think indie writers and writers in general kind of get to enjoy because of technology being so awesome. No matter what, we can still connect.
Exactly. Exactly. We're in completely different time zones and we get to have a great chat. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. So I just want to dive on in. I was looking at your website, sjpratt.com. Anyone who's interested, head on over there. It's a fabulous website. You can find out everything you need to know, including you have some short fiction or short stories in some magazines. And I just wanted to kind of start there just because the great Stephen King started writing for magazines and doing kind of interesting fiction. And so you're there, and then we'll move to the 716, which is the novel you're working at. But let's just start with the fiction that you have available on your website that's been published on magazines.
Yeah. So I've always loved doing short stories. I think they're great for, just getting out of your head. Sometimes with a novel, it's kind of one big project. It's almost like a thesis in a way,
Mm-hmm.
like so it's quite good to do some short stories. I mean, as you probably know, I do young adult science fiction and speculative um, fiction. So the three short stories that I've had published are just a bit of fun, really. One of them's
Mm-hmm.
from the point of view of a cat who's trying to be fed and very demanding.
I wonder where you got inspiration for that.
Yeah, some real life experiences there.
Yeah, for sure.
So just a bit of fun. There's another one with a young girl who has scientists in her wardrobe, and she's trying to get her father to believe that there are scientists in her wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
That one is based on. I never thought there were monsters under my bed. For some reason, I thought there were scientists in my wardrobe. So
I like it. It sets you
yeah,
apart from an early age.
exactly. The science fiction take on monsters under your bed, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah, and then the last one's about a teenage guy who's pretty spoiled and rich and goes to a museum. It's set in the future where the Great Famine has wiped out a ton of food. And
Mm-hmm.
so they've got all this dried food on display. And
Oh.
one of the things they go to see is the last raisin. And he gets all snarky and he's like, no, actually, I have the last raisin.
Oh.
So yeah, just all a bit of fun, really. Yeah.
I love that. And did you know from a young age that you wanted to be a writer?
Yeah, definitely. I've always loved writing. My first sort of foray into writing was when I was 10, and I wrote basically a version of Pirates of the Caribbean, but with a 10-year-old girl as the protagonist. Um, so
That's awesome.
very plagiarized there, but good fun.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then I suppose, decided that marketing would be a better career in terms of making money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's done well for me. I do that as a day job. So that pays the bills. But then I sort of realized about 3 years ago that really I wanted to be a writer
Yeah.
and to get science fiction. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so I know your work in progress, according to your website, is the 716. Oh, I think my earphones are going to die in a minute. So I'm just
Oh.
gonna have this on standby, and you just tell me if you can't hear me.
Okay,
Um,
will do.
but I was looking at your website, sjpratt.com, and it's really well organized, and you were talking on there about the 716, which is your work in progress. It's a science fiction full-length novel, or will be?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And I've been, watching you on Instagram, and it seems like you recently decided to go more traditional with the 716, and I was kind of curious about that decision. And I guess, too, submitting to magazines, you're kind of used to submission guidelines, but you didn't have to have an agent or anything to submit to magazines.
No, no. You also don't need an agent to submit to the publishing houses here in New Zealand either.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool. That's so
yeah.
different.
Yeah, it's really different. Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite nice because, it kind of gets rid of one of those steps of trying to get an agent.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna try and get it published in New Zealand, or maybe Australia because they've got slightly bigger market, bigger publishing houses. So
I just got an email today that they're doing KDP prints in Australia. So for our
oh, okay.
Australian writers, I think that means you might be able to get access to proofs faster. I know if you do Ingram
That's cool.
Spark that it's really, really time consuming to get a proof if you don't live in the United States.
Yeah, yeah.
Which perspective is everything, we are a global world, but we don't all have access to the same things. Um,
No, definitely not. Yeah.
so you don't have to have an agent to submit to a publishing house in New Zealand. There's no gatekeepers. Like, does it go to a slush pile, or what's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've never done it before.
Oh,
But
okay,
also,
sorry. From
no,
what
no,
you
it's all
know.
good. Yeah, I mean, they tend to give you a time that they'll get back to you, and obviously, you sort of get anything between a generic rejection letter through to
Mhm.
something that's a bit more. Obviously, you could get a successful one, which is the dream,
Yes.
or sometimes you get a bit more feedback of this is what we liked and this is why we said no, and
Hmm.
I think a lot of it comes down to that mass market appeal with
Yeah.
traditional publishing.
Totally.
It's not necessarily that your book isn't amazing. It's just whether or not the market is actually
Hmm.
wanting it and ready for it. So, yeah.
So let's dive in. What is the 716 about? I read a little of the blurb on the website, but I'd love to hear you chat about it as well. That this is the one that I wonder too. Is your marketing experience influence your writing and what is on the market and stuff like that?
Yeah, totally. So first up, the 716 is a young adult science fiction novel
Hmm.
about a young man named Andy, and he wants to be an engineer. But in
Okay.
his world, only women are allowed to go to university. So it's his struggle to be taken seriously, to try to become an engineer, and the people that he meets along the way, sort of discovering that there are other people like him, that the gender spectrum is more diverse than his nation, comes across as, and to try to rally for change and gender equality.
Wow, that's so interesting. And then we have a comment here. The I might say her name wrong. Cian Cianasi. She says, I don't even know how I found Sarah, but I'm so excited to be part of the development of the 716. So cool, be part of, experience the development. I guess she's a follower of yours. So how long have you been writing the 716?
It's almost 3 years actually. I found it really tough to develop the world and the societal norms. I think I sort of always wanted to write a novel, and I didn't have something that I felt really passionate about until I came
Hmm.
up with this idea. But I found that even as an avid feminist,
Hmm.
a lot of my sort of perspectives were reasonably sexist. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, I was writing a scene with Andy, and it's actually him and a friend, and right at the end, Andy's boss comes in and just says like a sort of a throwaway comment, and then the scene ends. And I realized that in my first draft, I had made Andy's boss a man. Now, obviously, in my society, that would be a woman. The position of
Mm-hmm.
power would be a woman.
Yes.
And so it was just really interesting. You know, I think maybe it's taken me a bit longer because I've had to confront those sorts of things that maybe inherently deep down inside, you know, I'm like, it's
Yeah.
a position of power, that would be a man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, despite being a really serious feminist and being very keen on equality all around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think also to add to that, it's not just a gender flip as well. You know, there's a lot, I had to think a lot about, you know, men's body image, how you might be able to talk about that, because that's a big thing for women. You know, lots of different, yeah, how a society would look if we really valued, I don't know, more feminine traits like
Mm-hmm.
teamwork and empathy, rather than such a self-orientated sort of more patriarchal society. So,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, and how that could be really challenging for Andy. So, yeah.
Nice. Um, so you're on draft 3. My earbuds just went, but I can still hear you. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear.
Oh, perfect. There we go. So you're on draft 3. How many more drafts do you think you've got in you before you feel ready to submit to publication?
I'm actually really close. I think this is the last one. I know. So exciting.
That's like such a monumental achievement. Congratulations. That took, I know how much effort that takes. And I know that this sounds like something that you really love and you've been working on. Do you feel like it will turn into a series, or is it a standalone?
Yeah, no, it's a series. It's going to be a trilogy.
Okay.
So the first one is sort of about Andy, you know, discovering all of these things, discovering he's not alone, finding other people like him, and then the series develops with that sort of social revolution and challenging the norms of the society at a greater level.
Wow, great. So have you started book 2? Are you just working on book 1 and then you'll start book 2? Like, what's your process in terms of development, outline? I was listening to a podcast today by Unstoppable Authors, and they were talking about discovery writing, which a lot of people call pantsing.
Yeah.
And I like discovery writing. It sounds so much more cool.
Yeah.
And I think we all come to writing in different ways. I definitely discovery wrote my first book, and now I'm trying to take a little more creative control. But what are your methods? And I'm getting a lot of like Margaret Atwood vibes from you, just because of the gender norm and like, and how much gender plays a pivotal role in your plot, and also is causing you as a writer to kind of question your stereotypes and assumptions. But yeah, what is your method for development? Do you start with an outline? Do you just kind of write and let the story discover itself?
Yeah, so it's definitely developed, because I think we all learn a lot when we write our first book. I just sat down with this idea of Andy, and I just wanted to see where he would take me. So yeah, that kind of what is it, discovery writing?
Yes. So much better than pantsing.
Yeah, no,
so much better.
Yeah.
Good job, Unstoppable Author Podcast.
Yes, yeah, I love it. I'll have to check that out, actually.
Yeah, you should. Oh, they're great.
Yeah, so yeah, and then that went kind of terribly for me, honestly. Andy ended up in a like drug den kind of scenario, and I was like, wait, this is just not going where I wanted it to go. So I think I'm somewhere between pants and plotting, or you know, that kind of medium of I quite like to have my sort of key beats to the story, that key, you know, plot points, and then just see how Andy would get there, and you know, how the other characters play into it. And yeah, so that sort of worked really well for me, and I think I'll do that for the next 2 books too.
Nice. And so when you draft, at what point are you sending it to edit or anything like that? Do you send it to, I'm assuming you send it to a professional editor at some point.
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of that sort of area right now, because I'm just finishing up the draft.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. I'm like, give me all your knowledge.
Yeah. Oh Oh, you're sweet. Right back at you. We should, definitely swap.
Right.
But yeah, so sorry, what was the question? Was it
Oh,
about?
I was asking, I encourage writers, or speaking from experience, I'm like, always hire someone to do at least one edit, one round of editing. And I think there's this misconception, at least baby authors, which we're a little more advanced than that, but there is this misconception that you somehow write this book and then there it is. And it's like, no, it goes through so many iterations. You know, you can't put the window dressing on the house until you've built the house. You know what I mean? And so you don't get the story with the window dressing until you put the foundation in. But at a certain point along the way, you got to have a home inspection. You got to have someone tell you these are right angles. This hall does continue to the back, and there is a door. You know, no dead ends, no plot holes, and that's kind of where professional editing comes in. And so I was wondering for you, because you've also submitted, you know, your short stories to a magazine. So I'm assuming that when you submitted to them, maybe they also edited. But in terms of the 716, at what point do you, or what is your method? I guess is my question, to be more succinct.
So I suppose for me, I actually heavily rely on beta readers. So that does a lot. That helps me a lot with the, I guess, the developmental editing side of things. Also, I think with my marketing background, what I do, I'm a manager, so I'll manage a lot of projects right from sort of conception through to actual execution. And so I think kind of my nature is quite good at figuring out, you know, what is compelling for consumers, what is you know, drawing the story, or in my marketing life, the marketing campaign along. So yeah, but I think that I tend to write the draft. I write the first draft for myself. No one gets to see that. I think that allows me to just kind of write whatever I want. You know, if a unicorn wants to appear, it can appear, and I
absolutely don't get it all out.
Yeah, just do it, you know, and no one can judge you. There's a unicorn now, you know, you can always come back and delete that unicorn. So, and then the second draft, I'll get my husband and my sister, you know, kind of people like that to read it. And that's, a lot of that is I think the storyline is kind of the bones of, or the foundations of the house, you know, the structure.
Absolutely.
You've got to work on that before you do any of the line editing or things like that. So, and then I have, I'm gonna do the line editing portion of it with a professional editor.
Nice.
But I think the developmental stuff is quite, I don't know, it's more my strong suit. So yeah, kind of working with beta readers to see where the gaps are, and then filling them in. But the line editing, I think you really can't do yourself. I think that's you know, you just read you read your story how you're going to read it, you know, and
by that time you've read it so much too. Sorry to interrupt.
No, please. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just you know, you don't see those things that a fresh pair of eyes would see. So I do recommend it.
Like, I've even read some stuff about how many times your brain can see the words after you've read it so many times. Like, your brain is so used to reading it that you will skip over it. So you're really just wasting your time. You really should give it to a fresh set of eyes. Whatever you're ready to do that. And you do make a good point to do the developmental and beta reading process before you do the line edits, because again, you want to get that foundation really strong before you go through and you line edit, like, which is going line by line and making sure the sentence structure looks good and all that kind of stuff. For anyone wondering what line editing is, I often watch these kind of programs and be like, well, what's developmental?
So what
you know, and now that I, you know, do writing, developmental editing is actually some of my favorite. Like, if I were to get another day job, you know, I think I would actually really enjoy developmental editing. And someone that really turned me on to it was Tess Thompson. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's in Dallas. She wears a big red cowboy hat. I think her name is Tess Thompson. I found her on Inkers Con, and she is like called a developmental like doula, which, you know, making a good story is like birthing something in a lot of metaphorical ways. So I think it's funny that she's adopted this developmental book doula situation. She also writes, but she does mentorships and stuff like that. But I just took a quick course with her on developmental editing, and she had some great tips. You know, like when you go through that first pass, have a little notebook next to you, and you know how you go through and you're like, oh, I really need to make sure that they drink coffee in this area, you know, of whatever my secondary world is, or if coffee is available, you know, and instead that's not really a line edit. That's a window. That's like a foundation thing. So you make this whole list as you go through your book, and then you have a list of the world building things that you might need to work on before you get to that draft, which for those of us who do build secondary worlds or tweak a little bit the worlds, you know, maybe a tertiary world even, it's important to have that world building really solid for our characters to interact in. And as far as like world building, what kind of techniques do you do? Do you kind of just do that rough draft and let the world kind of present itself, or do you kind of do some world building before you begin?
Yeah, so the first time I definitely did, you know, the former, just let it kind of show itself. I think moving forward, I would do more work on it before I started. I think, realize just how integral it is, especially in this story, you know, for Andy to react to his environments, and you know, everyone is a product of their environment and the society that we live in, and that's no less true for our characters. So,
I remember you talked to me a little bit when I posted this book, this author guidebook. And it's been really great. I'm only in like the first few. It's one of those ones too where you can write in it.
I love it.
But it's really fun, these exercises. And she even has like a whole section on popular dystopian tropes. When I opened this page, I was like, yes, this is the book I've always wanted. Just because it's like candy for writers to kind of see that like there's a whole situation of people that are so into sci-fi and world building and stuff like that. And in terms of your series, you know, so you have a 3-book series planned within this world, and it really kind of is dependent on this kind of reverse. It's a matriarchal society in a lot of ways versus patriarchal, and you kind of had to invert a lot of your assumptions to write it. Without giving any spoilers away, do you feel like there might be some dystopian future in your books that there's equality?
Oh,
heaven forbid. Where's the conflict?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, I think that would be cool. I think I you know, like developing this world, which is very sexist. You know. Which has been quite funny. Some people have told me that, like, oh, you're being really sexist, and I was like, yeah, that's the point, you know, you're almost there. But yeah, I think I would have to put a lot of effort into what that would mean. I think, you know, obviously we don't live in a world where we're all equal.
No country that I know of.
Nope. Absolutely not. So it's not like there's an example for, you know, this is a great world. It's really cool.
It's like the example is other science fiction. Like the first one I think of is Star Trek TNG. The whole the show is that we've figured it out. So now we're up there trying to discover stuff. You know, they figured that like they figured poverty and healthcare and equality, they figured all of that out, and it's just like all about exploration, which is such a like, that's I think one of the reasons that Star Trek is so popular. But dystopian fiction is often a far grimmer idea of what the future could hold, and I think that is what I'm seeing more in the market now, especially considering what year we all just had, like globally. Which I know. You'd think that maybe that would be less popular. Like that would be like, no, I really want Sunshine and Ponies kind of sci-fi fantasy. But you know, I remember when the lockdown happened here last year, the #1 movie on Netflix was Outbreak, which was like a 90s Dustin Hoffman movie about the Ebola outbreak coming to suburban America.
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. And so I think too, science fiction is so great at contrasting the world we live in a way that makes us see it differently without hitting us over the head with political commentary. You know what I mean? And so I feel like your book has that opportunity, because you've even had that experience. It sounds like just writing it, kind of being like, okay, and so it's making you see it more. And I think that's what's so great about really good sci-fi, is it makes us think about our world in a different way, through just, you know, storytelling, through imaginative lies.
Yeah. And I think it gives us, like, I don't know, almost a bit of distance from it to be able to consider those concepts properly. I mean, obviously my book confronts, you know, the reader with it pretty head on. It's in a sort of welcoming, you know, YA kind of way, but it's very clear that we're talking about gender. But I think one of the things I love about sci-fi is that, it gives you an opportunity to reflect on our world, on how we interact with each other, you know, or how we treat the planet, in a, I don't know, I don't want to use the word safe, but it's kind of like a safer way. You don't, because I think that when we sometimes, you know, especially, you know, it's those of us who are privileged in terms of color or race, or, you know, gender, you know, I think it can be a bit confronting sometimes, and you know, you sort of, a lot of people have a reaction that's a bit, you know, maybe defensive, whereas I think when you read a book that's like, oh well, the green aliens are, you know, so much better than the blue aliens, and, you know, there's this, you know, not better than, but, you know, difference in class or whatever, and it allows you to sort of just take a step back and actually empathize and listen and try to sort of go, okay, first of all, one, that's really, like, unfair, and then two, okay, how does that actually reflect on my own life and the society that I live in? So and there's lots of
and it allows for creativity and storytelling, and I think, you know, it gives us an opportunity to explore issues that would normally be a trigger response for people, because no one wants to read a book where you're like, oh, this is about how I'm wrong, or you know, or this plays into how people from my area of the world are stereotyped as being this kind of person or people, and so it allows you to take stereotypes and just kind of just dismantle them in a way that it's like you're really getting to, you know, the gristle, you know, of why we think the way we do, and how that maybe has developed. And in terms of world building too, as a sci-fi writer, you know, you're making up these entire worlds, so it inevitably makes you reflect on your own, and I wonder how that started here.
you know? Why do we do that?
Why do we do that? You know, and why is cognitive dissonance such a thing? You know, how do we make it this far? Like I think the older, and this is just a total Tina Capricornism. This isn't based off anything, but the older I get as a woman, the more I'm like, how are we not in charge? You know, like, and that is a very sexist thing to say. But the more I learn about men in power, the more I'm like,
how did this happen?
How did this happen?
How did we get here?
And I would say that if we were in charge, we wouldn't make the same mistakes. But we've never had a chance, so
exactly. Well, that's what I got to imagine, is a world where we were in power. You know, how that might look, and
we definitely have some family leave.
Exactly.
So you had to maybe take a year off, honey.
Exactly.
You know? I don't know how it is in New Zealand, but in the U.S. they're unkind.
No, very similar, very similar.
Okay.
You know, and things like you know, healthcare. A lot of our you know, research is based around the man's body. So I think, you know, having sort of like I have endometriosis, and we don't even know why it happens. You know, we don't even, there's no research into why women have this, or, you know, not enough, like, you know, there's not enough sort of like actually believing women that they have pain, you know.
It's pain you can't see, so she's probably hysterical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
don't worry
she's just
about
being
it.
Emotional. Like,
Yeah, I think too at a certain point in my life I was like, they've only considered women, not little men, medically for maybe 20 years in the US.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods, but it is kind of shocking when you really get down to that and see and experience that inequality within just healthcare setting, you know,
Yeah.
And for people that look even less like me, you know,
Yes.
it's even harder.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's a fun topic, you know, to explore within science fiction. I'm doing a little bit of that in book 2 of my series,
Okay.
where it's set in a dystopia, and some of the elements that are inspiring me right now, slash keeping me up at night, so I put it in my fiction, is microplastics and fertility rates. And so, you know, and the climate crisis, obviously, how can that not influence your fiction? You know, and I see that a lot in other dystopian fiction. So, you know, I'm like, maybe we shouldn't put it in fiction because it feels fictionalized. But yeah, so, and some of that kind of stuff where, you know, which is very Margaret Atwood-esque, the idea of fertility, this power that, you know, only women have. And as fertility rates decrease, and because of whatever, you know, that's a great plot point. That's a great way to invert the known, which Neil Gaiman's famous for saying, you know, invert the known and then you have your story. It's a great jumping off point, you know. I don't know. I just got off on a tangent there talking about science.
Yeah, great. Great. Yeah, love it.
So, in terms of your writing practice, talk to me a little bit about your day to day. Do you try to write every day? Do you have a word count goal, or what's your schedule like? Tell me all about it.
Well, I am very lucky in that I can afford to work part-time. Nice. So I tend to work. I'm most creative in the morning, and I'm also lucky enough to have a somewhat flexible schedule. So I tend to get up and work on my novel in the morning, and then I'll have lunch, and then I'll do my marketing work in the afternoon.
Nice.
I mean, sometimes obviously things have to change, meetings and whatnot, but that's the schedule I sort of try to stick to, and I think I'm very, very lucky to be able to have that, but it's been really great.
That's great. That's so great. It's just having consistency and routine in your writing practice, for me, has really helped my productivity. And I'm kind of like you. I'm in a really sweet spot where I'm working somewhat part-time, and so I'm getting to do that other part with writing, which is such a gift.
It's so nice.
Yeah,
so
it's
good.
such a gift. Not everyone can do it. I couldn't do it for 10 years because my first book took me 6 years to write, and I was working full-time at the salon. But now I work part-time and do writing part-time, and it's just awesome, and I've accomplished so much more. But one thing, even when you do work from home, and this definitely was a trap I fell in when I first started working from home, because it all kind of happened at once last March, is I'm a great time waster. And if I know I have to like edit something, or I have to write this scene, suddenly my kitchen is the filthiest. Like, if I don't clean it now, things will happen.
Right now.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I definitely, I you know, the cat really needs my attention. So I definitely have tried to utilize time-saving techniques for my entrepreneur business, but also my writing, and like also I have like this little hacks. Well, like if I don't want to do something, I have a little sand timer that's 20 minutes that I'll turn over. For you working from home, do you have any tips for the audience here on things that you do that keep you on track and organized?
Well, one I really like, and I can't remember who came up with this, but is the idea of giving it a go for 10 minutes. And I suppose it's kind of like your sand timer, but you know, just making yourself actually sit down, you know, the bum in the seat, and you have 10 minutes, and don't don't take your phone in with you. You know, some people turn off the internet if they, you know, if that's a problem.
Yeah.
Just like solidly give it a go for 10 minutes. And at the end of that 10 minutes, if you're still not feeling it, like you can't get into the scene or whatever it is, you know, maybe try a different approach. But I often find that the hardest thing for me is actually just sitting down to do it. You know, you get distracted by the washing and those sorts of things. Whereas if you actually force yourself to sit down, no distractions, often you sort of find that that 10 minutes turns into an hour, and you know, it feels good. So yeah. And then other things is I would recommend having a dedicated writing space.
Absolutely.
Not everyone is lucky enough to have that.
I know.
But if you can,
I didn't for my first book, so you can do it, but it is hard.
It is hard. It is.
It is
I think it
hard.
makes a difference though, for me personally. Anyway, it's just nice to I shut the door.
It's your creative space.
Me and exactly. Because I think a big thing from working from home is your interruptions. You know, like we were talking about life earlier.
Where I was like, the dog might come in, the kids are home.
Exactly. A cat might walk across my screen. But yeah, so having a space where you can shut the door, like no one's going to come in, and you just, you know, agree with yourself that even if the washing is done, or, you know,
or it's not,
I don't know, you just leave it alone. You know, your writing comes first for this hour. So
do you set aside, is it for you time, like an hour, or do you set aside like word count goals?
I tend to work on time. I think word count goals work really well for some people, but I find sometimes I can write, you know, thousands of words, and sometimes I'm struggling with this one paragraph. And I think,
I've been stuck in a kitchen for weeks.
And
sitting within a kitchen where I'm like, we're never leaving this kitchen.
No,
ever.
This is it. This is my life now.
This is my life now. We're just books in the kitchen, I guess.
Exactly. So, and sometimes I need to admit that, like, maybe I don't quite get that scene yet, so I'll go and do something else. But I think word count goals, sometimes I find myself forcing it out, and it's not, you know, it doesn't quite flow properly. Where if I came back the next day when I'd had a chance to think about it, then, you know, it'll just flow really well. So I try to hold myself accountable by time rather than word count.
That's good. I do a little bit of both. I've done a lot of writing challenges, which have led me to my ideal work schedule. And those were all word count, emphasized on word count. And then, like, I would get into this trap where I wouldn't meet my word count. And this 1,500 words is just crap, you know? It's like, no, you got 1,500 words. Like, that's awesome. What if it wasn't 2,000? Excuse me. So I think it's important to, for me, word count goals are motivating, but I also have learned to have grace with myself and be like, so you didn't get 2,000, but you got 1,800. Well, it's 1,800 more than you had. You know, just kind of like, you know, you gotta be your biggest advocate, which is the other thing. You know, I didn't really think about going into writing, because, like, if you were doing a haircut, you can be like, oh, I just don't feel like doing it, but you can still do a great haircut because you've done it before. But, like, you know, if you don't believe in yourself as a writer, no one else will. It's you have to be the number one, and then there's imposter syndrome, and so it's just so easy to kind of tear yourself down. But self-care and making sure that you feel nourished creatively is so important, which brings me to a question for you. What are the things that you do to fill your cup, as it were, as a writer, to avoid burnout, to keep you feeling creative? Because, you know, everything that we absorb as people is grist for the writer's mill, I think. Every story you've heard, or movie you've watched, or music album that's influenced you is going to go into whatever story is burning to be written for you. But, you know, you can overwork a muscle, you can overwork writing, and it's easy to do in this entrepreneur game because you have so many hats you need to wear: business, marketing, you know, keeping up with the writers, your own writing goals. interpersonal relationships. You might like to have
Yeah.
friends.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so how do you, I guess my question is, how do you keep balance, and what do you do to kind of bring it back to you and like kind of nourish yourself as an artist and a writer?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay. So I love to do lots of different types of things to keep yeah, keep my spirit up. Like one that I'll do, I try to do yoga every day.
Yes, I love that. I do a lot of
And I
stretching.
think yeah, it's just nice to yeah, you know, sort of work with your body a little bit, but also to actually step away from the writing, and for me, for the marketing, like don't, and that is my space that I agree with myself. I don't think about it. I'm not gonna, you
Mm-hmm.
know, try to brainstorm what Andy would be up to or anything. Like
Yeah.
that is just, that is for me, entirely for me. I think that, yeah, sort of allocating things where I would do that kind of brainstorming. Like if I go on a walk, I might decide that it is a brainstorming walk, so I'll, you know, actively think about it, or it
Mm-hmm.
might be just for myself, in which
Mm-hmm.
case I, you know, and it can be really hard. Like it's not, you know, self-care is,
It's hard. It
it's
is hard.
so hard. Like I actually used to really struggle with anxiety, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is another thing that artists
Mm-hmm.
definitely come up against. And I think a big part of that is putting aside some time for self-care, actually making it a sort of real goal that
Mm-hmm.
is part of your week and is as important as the other things in your life. So
Mm-hmm.
say your word count is 1,500 this week. Also, another goal would be to do yoga, you know, once every 2 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, making that self-care goal
Mm-hmm.
as important as everything else.
Absolutely.
That's made a huge difference to me, and yeah, also believing in myself. Like I think for a while there, I was like, am I even a writer? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, is this, you know, and so like we were talking about before, I think, you know, as much as cheesy as it kind of sounds, the positive mindset actually really does help. Like
Yeah.
you do start to really believe it
Yeah.
and feel a bit more confident. And I think, you know, we can all do it.
Yes.
You know, we are super creative people. I think this Instagram community is awesome and
Oh, I've
uplifting.
been so impressed with everyone.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I joined. Met some amazing people and
Mm-hmm.
just been so inspired. And I think that also really helps sort of lift me up, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I really can't be bothered today. And then I'll go on Instagram, you know, because I'm being terrible and procrastinating. And I'll see one of my friends is like, oh, I just got through, you know, I finished my draft or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if she can do it,
Yeah.
like I can do it, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I definitely feel like the Instagram community for me too, sometimes when I'm like, is anybody out there? That's when I kind of go on there and I go through and I like to shout out people on my stories and just be like, if someone made 5,000 words today or has a cover reveal or started a new draft, I like to be like, good job, because it is such a long road to the actual finished product in your hand. To wait until then to acknowledge your accomplishment is like the most delayed gratification, because I don't know about you, but like, and it was also the year of like COVID, but like my book launch, I definitely had this almost postpartum period where I was like, that's it.
And
you
I can
know,
so
I
see
got it
that.
out, and that's my life's work. So,
Yep.
and this feeling of like, I thought I would feel successful. I thought getting my first book out would make me feel successful, and when it didn't, like kind of really engaging with that feeling and that feeling of lack of success. And you know, you'll have friends that don't write who are like, what are you talking about? That's amazing, you published a book. You know, and I'm like, well, the only people that bought it were my friends. You know, it's just like
exactly.
it's like, I'm waiting for the day where someone I don't know buys.
Exactly.
And then I'll be successful.
And then I'll be
and it's like moving that bar. When are you gonna make time for that joy? Is basically, because I think ultimately we don't write books for money, or if we do, you need to read some books first to, you know, take a little edge off of that pain, because most of us won't be wildly successful. It is a small business, but it can still be a really awesome business, and can still really be a touchstone in your life, and not postponing joy, I think, is the biggest thing I've realized, and not having And, the goal line is always going to move because we're always trying to better ourselves as people, as writers. So what is successful for me year 1 will not be success for me in year 10, nor should it be,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think for me and I think for a lot of people, there's this misconception of you write a book, you publish it, and then you don't have to buy a cup of coffee ever again.
Now you're J.K. Rowling.
No.
No.
You and I both wish that's how it worked because I know you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then this idea that your book is this amazing thing that's going to be found out, despite your limited marketing. And that's also like you're just a flash in the pan or a little drop in the ocean, which is okay. There are still readers that want to read your books. These are all things that I kind of over the year discovered for myself that I want to always impart to people, because it's very easy to be like, is anyone going to read this?
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it can be a very isolating and lonely.
Especially when you put 6 years of work into it, and
or 3,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a thing in your life. And so you
but I think enjoying those. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh no, enjoying those little successes is a huge part of self-care as well. Like I think when you put all your sort of hopes into the future, you somewhat forget to enjoy right now.
Right now is going to be good. If you're writing your book, you're getting to do your dream. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And so one of the things I do, if I can just add it, is at the end of the day, I think about, sometimes I write them down, 3 things that I'm grateful for today.
Love that.
Like 3, that went really well. And it can be anything like, sometimes it's like, I made a really good cup of coffee. Like, go me. Oh. That was amazing. Like you can, it doesn't have to be, that I published my book, because you're not going to do that every day.
Well,
but just sort of.
And then isn't life made of all of these small little joys and moments of victory? They're not all the huge cover reveal. They're not all the book launch day. They're also like, hey, I, cleaned my house and edited today. I mean, no big deal.
Oh, nice. Yeah, exactly.
I figured out how to do both at once. Now that would be amazing.
Yeah. Although I must admit, I would like stickers. Like when you're at school, it's like, top of this or whatever that you can put on.
That's a great
I want
idea.
I was thinking of doing ones that like, I did my washing and I did at least 10 minutes on my book today.
Yeah.
And,
because I was thinking too, I'm at that part in my 30s where you aren't congratulated for anything. Like, just do your job. Like, you're of an age, you're not like 21 is like, oh, well, at least here 21 is a big deal because you get to drink, or 18 you're an adult, or 27, I think you can rent a car. But once you're in your 30s, it's just like, get to work.
Yeah.
You don't get any more awards
just do
for just doing your washing, and
exactly.
stickers. That's a good idea.
We should.
I will find some virtual stickers to start putting on people's stuff. I guess that's what gifts are. So this is just a nerdy question for me. You love coffee. How do you take your coffee?
So
but every day is fine too. You can just do your highlight reel.
We're pretty coffee snobs in this household.
Nice.
So I like I have espresso coffee. So I like it like a latte, and I will make that every day.
You like it a latte? Get it?
Yeah. Some good writer puns in there.
Oh, so many.
Yeah. So, and then my husband recently bought me this mug, which I saw on Instagram, which it keeps your coffee hot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's got like this bottom bit is a battery.
What?
And,
it's like a hot plate in your coffee mug?
Yep. So it keeps my coffee warm.
Oh, well, he gets a gold star for giving you that. So, if I had a sticker, I'd give him one. That's a really good one for any writer on your list, or person that forgets to drink their coffee quickly.
Yeah, well, because you get in the zone, right?
Yeah.
And you're like just going for it. And then you're like, oh, my coffee.
Yeah, I'll get like and this is the kind of coffee person I am, because I think we should close the show out talking about coffee, because it's vital for writers.
It is.
Coffee and
so
cats.
Important. Yeah. Life, doing the washing.
Yes, everything, and it's delicious. I am that person. I'm when I make it at home, I don't do. Creepy Kitten Creation says, I was so unmotivated to write today until I watched this. I'm going to do it. Thanks you guys so much for this live show. It's brilliant. Well, you are so welcome.
Yay!
This is exactly
Yeah,
why we do it, to motivate anyone who's struggling or wanting to pursue their dreams or just have more tips.
Exactly.
So stay tuned if you want to hear about coffee. Because we're experts on that.
Yes, absolutely.
When I make it from home, I just make regular old, I do grind it at home because you gotta have fresh beans.
Yes.
And I really just do like a dash of lactose free, half and half.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't want any sugar. I really just want to kind of a little bit of the acid because I'm a little sensitive. Yeah. And I dream about that first sip the night before. I'm dreaming about it right now. That's how much I love coffee.
I know. I'm very, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm very lucky that I start almost every day with my husband bringing me a coffee in bed. So
get out of here. He gets another star. He gets 2 stars.
I know. Shout out to him.
I know. You chose the right one.
Yes.
And I don't do the lattes unless I go out and they make it for me. I do not have one of those latte machines, but I do love a little pump of vanilla sometimes, or this local place, Izzy's Coffee, close to my house, does one called the sweater, I think is called, or like it's the cardigan, and it's a little bit of rose and orange peel, and it sounds weird, but it's really good. And they only do it seasonally, and then they stopped advertising that they made it, or at least I want to say that they did. I probably didn't notice the sign. And then I asked for it, and they're like, well, we're not making that right now. We will for you. And then I'm like, okay. I know I've made it at the local coffee place. Will make the off-season specialty drink for me. By the way, I've given you like $1,000, so please do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's when you know you've got a proper coffee addiction. Yes. Is when someone's like, okay, but for you we will.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know. Yeah. That's
totally.
Exactly. I actually, if you don't mind, just related to a friend of mine on Instagram, and I do the author mugshot challenge.
Oh, I've done that twice, and I love it so much.
Oh, yay!
Is it an AMC writer that does it with you?
Yes. She's amazing.
She seems very lovely.
Oh, she's so cool.
I follow her and like her things. I utilized the last author mugshot challenge that I was aware of. You might do it more often because,
no, we've just done it twice.
Okay.
But there's another one coming up in July. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And I did it last time to showcase, and this isn't offensive, but bear with me, my dick mug collection. And it's because I like to collect mugs from touristy places. Like there's a theme park close by called Dollywood. Dolly Parton created it. So I have a dick mug from there, and I have one from Cherokee Casino, and I have another one that just someone, and it's just for Richard. It's just for guys named Richard who want a mug with their name on it.
Right.
And so I think it's hilarious because it's a mug that says dick on it.
Yeah.
DICK. But then there's like Dolly Parton's face below me. I'm like, come on out. But inevitably, people are perverted and they're like, I got you a dick mug. And I'm like, I don't want any penises. I literally wanted it for Richard.
Yeah.
Richard needs a tourist mug, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Come on.
Yeah.
One for Sarah. And,
so the last mug shot challenge, I got to share that really weird inside joke / mug collection I have. So I really enjoyed it. I was like, cool, you guys are ready for my weirdness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We embrace it.
Embrace it. That's right.
Exactly what the mugshot challenge is about. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, so that's coming up in July. And so you and AMC Writer are going to be hosting it. Now, for anyone that's watching and they want to participate, what goes on? What do you need to do?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. You just take your favorite mug and take a selfie with it. And then post it with the hashtag author mugshot challenge. If you follow me or AMC Writer, you'll be able to see, we'll be posting about it. But it's just supposed to be a bit of fun. It's not too hard, and you get to meet a couple of other people and see some really cool mugs.
Yes, I saw a lot of cool mugs last time.
Yeah, there's some super cool mugs. I'm so jealous. Like, where did you get that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, people are going to be asking you about that one. When you should do some temperature like checks, like get one of those temperature things, and be like,
Yeah.
at words 500, still whatever grade degrees, super warm.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
it's really good. There's even an app. That's how ridiculous it is. There's an app
what?
where you can
At
set
the
your own
front door,
temperature.
there's an
Yeah.
app for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a
And you
fan.
set the
Now, I
temperature.
really hope that burrito also had, or burrito, that mug also can cook burritos and has GPS.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
addition, then we'd be
And
set.
yeah, exactly. And gives out affirmations like you did really well today
Yeah.
or something like that.
Just
Yeah.
put your
Yeah.
whole Alexa in that mug. It keeps it warm. Alexa, 2 more degrees. I'm on a roll here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's been so lovely chatting with you. It's around about an hour
Yeah.
right now, so I want to let you go because you got to get on with the rest of your morning. We are currently time traveling.
I know.
For anyone that's curious, because it is almost 7 o'clock. I promised some humans I lived with I'd cook for them.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah.
At some point. I did say at some point, so it's a non-binding time.
Yes.
And it is probably just around 11 a.m. where you are.
Yeah, the next on Tuesday. Yeah.
On Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's even the next day. This is
Yeah, it's the
even
next
Monday
day.
for you. That
Yeah.
is just super wild to me that it is. I'm
I know,
talking
it's
to you on
crazy.
Tuesday. Anything I need to know about Tuesday so far? Any tips for me on Tuesday?
Seems pretty good.
Like
So
it?
far, the apocalypse hasn't happened, so
Okay.
that's great.
That's
So
good.
that's good.
Yeah.
No, seems good. I think
Okay,
you'll be
it's a good
fine.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good to know. I might
Yeah.
have to check in frequently and just ask you how the next day is.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're also in the opposite season.
Yes, yeah, it's winter now. It was quite a wintry day. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. One of those really cold, crisp,
Nice.
lovely days. So
It is-
yeah, we've got the
hot.
fire on. Yeah.
It's decided this week that it's summer. That's why my hair is up because I don't think my AC works yet or something's going on with it. I need someone to look at it.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? We're just going to do it right by the window.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
So it's Monday
Yeah.
in the summer here and it's Tuesday in the winter there.
No,
So
crazy,
that's how
isn't it?
that's how we are talking to each other. Time
Yeah.
magic. No big deal.
No, pretty amazing.
It is.
Technology.
It's kind of amazing. It's been so lovely chatting with you. I can't wait to see your post for the Author Mugshot Challenge and continue following the progress for the 716, which is in draft 3, which is supposedly its last draft. You got some cover art coming for it? You got someone working on cover art for you?
No, not yet. I'm getting there, hopefully. Yeah.
Great. That's the fun part too.
Yeah,
love that
no, I'm
part.
really excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, it's so great to see you and have a great rest of your morning. And I'm going to download this so your parents can watch it. Hi, parents. This is for them later. They get to see me wave later. That's also time travel. All right. Cool. Well, have a great rest
Well,
of
thank
your
you
day.
so much for, thank you so
No.
much for having me, Tina. I really appreciate it. It's been so lovely to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Yes,
and dinner goes well.
absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much.
Uh-huh. Bye.